Good morning, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about the types of tissues in the living organisms' bodies. Okay. First of all, we have to talk about the meaning of the word tissue. Tissue is a group of cells with each other. As we said before, that inside our body we have group of systems like the digestive system, like the respiratory system, like the circulatory system, the nervous system. All of these systems work together as one unit to keep our body alive. So we have to know that each system inside our body consists of a group of organs. For example, if we talk about the digestive system, it consists of a group of organs such as the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and so on. Each one of these organs consists of a group of body tissues. So the tissue means layer, okay? So each tissue now consists of, under the microscope, consists of a group of cells, okay? So finally, we find that the cell is the smallest building unit inside our body or inside the living organism's body, and the tissue consists of a group of cells with each other, okay? Next step, we have to know that the tissues inside the plant differs from the tissues inside the animal's body. So, first part of the lesson, we are going to talk about the types of tissues inside the plant. Inside the plant, we have simple tissue and complex tissue. The simple tissue, the tissue that consists of a group of similar cells with each other. But the complex tissue is the tissue that consists of a group of different cells. So we have two types of tissues inside the plant. One of them is simple tissue, or a group of them are simple tissues. The simple tissues are tissues that consist of a group of similar cells. But the complex or compound tissues, they are tissues that consist of a group of different cells. Okay? First, we are going to talk about the types of simple tissues inside the plant body. We have three types of simple tissues inside the plant body. First one is the parenchyma tissue. The second one is the collenchyma tissue. And the third one is the sclerenchyma. So we have three types of simple tissue in the plant: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. First, we are going to talk about the parenchyma tissue. What is the character of this tissue? This tissue consists of a group of similar cells, as we said before, and the cells are thin-walled. There is no thickness in the outer layer of the cell or in the cell wall. The cell wall is thin, and there are spaces between the cells for aeration. So the main function of this type of tissue is aeration, or to let the gas exchange. Look at this figure. This is the shape of the parenchyma tissue. The cells are thin-walled. There are spaces between the cells for aeration. So the main function of this type of tissue is aeration or gas exchange. The second function is, according to the types of plastids inside this tissue, if this tissue consists of chloroplast, so one of the function of this type of tissue is photosynthesis process. If this type of tissue contains chromoplast, so one of the function of this tissue is coloring for the plant. If this type of tissue contains leucoplast, so the function will be storage the food for the plant in the form of starch. So about the function of this type of tissue, we have four functions now. The first one is aeration, because there is an air spaces between the cells. Okay, so there is air spaces between the cells, so the main function here is aeration or gas exchange. The second function, if this type of cell contains, or this type of tissue contains chloroplast, so it helps in photosynthesis process. If it contains the chromoplast, so it helps in coloring for the plant. If it contains leucoplast, so it helps in storage the food for the plant. Okay? The second type is collenchyma tissue. This type of tissue contains cells. The cells here, or the corners between the cells, are thickened with a substance which is called cellulose. It's a flexible substance. It gives the plant the mechanical support or the elasticity. So the main function of this type of tissue is mechanical support because it gives elasticity for the plant. Okay, so this type of tissue, the cells are rectangular shaped, and the wall corners are thickened with cellulose, which is a substance that gives the elasticity for the plant. Okay, so the main function here is the mechanical support for the plant. The third type of tissue here is sclerenchyme. This type of tissue, characterized by their walls are very thick. They are thickened with cellulose and lignin, like this one. Okay, so the main function here also, it gives the plant the mechanical support, or it gives the plant the elasticity and strength to protect the plant against the action of the wind. We call this part, or this type, mechanical support of the plant. Okay, so we have three types of simple tissues in the plant: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Okay, collenchyma and the sclerenchyma, they give the plant the mechanical support because collenchyma corners are thickened with cellulose, and the sclerenchyma wall, all the wall, covered with cellulose and lignin. While the parenchyma, it doesn't give the plant the mechanical support, but it has another functions. Number one, it gives the aeration for the plant because they contain air spaces between the cells. Number two, it helps in photosynthesis process. Number three, if it contains chromoplast, so it helps in coloring of the plant. Number four, if it contains leucoplast, so it stores the food for the plant, okay, in the form of starch. These are the three types of simple tissues in the plant. We have another type of tissue in the plant, which is called the complex tissue in the plant, or the compound tissue in the plant. We have two types of compound tissue in the plant. The meaning of the word compound or complex, this tissue here consists of a group of different cells. So we have two types of tissues now, the phloem and the xylem. To know the function of the xylem of the phloem, I want to explain something. You know from the previous information that the plant makes a process which is called photosynthesis process. This process happens in the green area in the plant. It means it happens in the leaf and the stem of herbaceous plants. During photosynthesis, the plant needs water and salts to complete the photosynthesis process. And you knew from the previous information that the plant absorbs water and salts from the soil. So, what is the tissue that's responsible for transportation of these water and salts from the root to the leaves to let the photosynthesis to happen in the leaves? There is a tissue inside the plant which is called xylem. This tissue responsible for transportation of water and salts from the root to the leaves to let the photosynthesis process to be happen in the leaves. Okay? After the photosynthesis, the plant makes its own food. So, you know that the cells of the stem and the cells of the root need this food. Okay? So, the question now, what is the tissue that's responsible for transportation of the food or the ready-made food from the leaves to the stem and to the root? Okay? This is the tissue that's responsible for transportation of the ready-made food, which is called the phloem. So we have two types of complex tissues in the plant. We call them complex because they contain of different cells. And we call them also the transport tissues because they're responsible for transportation process. The xylem responsible for transportation of water and salts up from the root to the leaves, and the phloem responsible for transportation of ready-made food from the leaves to other parts of the plant down. Okay? So we can say that xylem and phloem are complex tissues or transport tissues in the plant. Also, we can say that xylem and the phloem are vascular tissues. Vascular means this type of tissue consists of tubes inside the plant. Because the shape of the xylem, we are going to talk about the structure, you will find that the xylem consists of tubes, and the phloem also consists of tubes for transportation. So, we call these types of tissues vascular tissues inside the plant because they consist of tubes. Okay? So, about the structure of the xylem. We said that the xylem and the phloem are complex tissues. So, why the xylem is complex? Because it consists of a group of different cells. The xylem itself consists of three types of cells. Xylem vessels, which are the tubes where the water and salts move up from the root to the leaves. And we have xylem tracheids. They are other cells in the structure of the xylem and it helps in the function of the xylem. And we have parenchyma cells or parenchyma tissue related with the xylem, so we call them xylem parenchyma. Okay, so the xylem itself consists of xylem vessels, xylem tracheids, and xylem parenchyma. About the xylem vessels. The xylem vessels, this is the shape of the xylem vessel. It seems like a hollow tube. The question now, how does this tube form? How? During the formation of the xylem vessel, at the last or at the past, they form from group of cells arranged above each other. During the formation of these cells, the nucleus disappeared, and the cytoplasm also disappeared, and the transverse walls between the cells disappear. So the xylem vessels appear at the end as hollow tube to let the water and salts to transfer up from the root to the leaves without any problem inside a hollow tube. So the xylem vessel is a hollow tube without nucleus, without cytoplasm, without transverse walls between the cells. Okay? This is the shape of the xylem vessel. About the tracheid, also the tracheid is a cell inside the xylem structure. These tracheids are cells, okay? They formed also above each other. During the formation of these cells, the nucleus disappeared or degenerated, and also the cytoplasm. So also the tracheid enters in the structure of the xylem tissue. Take care that the xylem vessels and tracheids are not only one. There are groups of xylem vessels, groups of tracheids. They connected together by what's called xylem parenchyma. So the xylem itself consists of xylem vessels, xylem tracheids, and xylem parenchyma to connect between the vessels together. Okay? You have to understand also that during the formation of the xylem vessels and tracheids, the plant deposited substance on the wall, inside and outside. Okay? This substance is lignin. So from the functions also of the xylem, that it gives the mechanical support for the plant, because the xylem vessels and tracheids also covered internally and externally with the lignin. Okay? So if I ask you about the functions of the xylem, you have to say that the xylem tissue is responsible for transportation of water and salts up from the root to the leaves, and also the xylem has another function, which is the mechanical support of the plant due to the deposition of the lignin on the inner and the outer wall of the xylem vessels and tracheids. Okay? So let's talk about this is the structure of the xylem tissue again: vessels, tracheids, and xylem parenchyma. The vessels are tubes. Each of them is made up of vertical cells where the protoplasm, it means the cytoplasm and nucleus, and transverse walls are disappeared. Lignin substance was deposited on their walls. Okay? So also the tracheids, each one of them is consists of one cell, and they are also thickened with the lignin on the wall. So the main function of the xylem is the transportation of water and salts up from the root to the leaves. Another function is mechanical support, because they cover with the lignin, so they give the plant the mechanical support. Okay? About the structure of the phloem, we said also the phloem is a complex tissue in the plant. What is the meaning of the complex tissue? The tissue consists of different cells. What are the cells of the phloem? Also we have tubes called sieve tubes, we have companion cells, and we have phloem parenchyma to connect between the tubes together. About the structure of the sieve tube. Look at this figure. This is the sieve tube, the tube that transports the ready-made food down from the leaves to other parts of the plant. About the formation of the sieve tube, or during the formation of the sieve tube, they were group of cells arranged above each other. During the formation of these cells, the nucleus degenerated, but the cytoplasm present, and the transverse walls become perforated. The meaning of the word perforated means they contain pores to allow the cytoplasm of one cell to transport to the next cell, carrying the food. So the food passes inside the sieve tube, carried on the cytoplasm, and the cytoplasm of one cell can pass to another cell, carrying the food through the sieve tubes. What about the companion cells? The companion cells are a group of cells beside the sieve tubes. These cells are very important for the structure of the phloem because these cells contain nucleus to control the phloem activity or to control the passage of the food inside the phloem. Okay? Because the sieve tubes, they don't contain nucleus. So the companion cells here beside the sieve tubes contain nucleus to control the phloem activities or to control the passage of the food inside the phloem. And also the companion cells contain mitochondria. The mitochondria, as we said before, they are centers of energy production inside the cell. So this mitochondria inside the structure of the phloem or inside the companion cells, they help to produce the energy because the passage of the food inside the sieve tube need energy. Okay? So the companion cells are very important for the structure of the phloem because two reasons. Because they contain nucleus to control the phloem activities or to control the passage of the food inside the phloem. Also, the companion cells contain mitochondria to produce energy for production of energy because the passage of the food inside the phloem needs energy. Okay? Let's come back to the phloem. The phloem consists of, as we said, sieve tube, companion cells, and we have phloem parenchyma to connect between them. About the sieve tubes, their nucleus disappear. The cytoplasm is found in the form of strands or threads because they transported from one cell to another, okay, carrying the food. So the cytoplasm here is found. Their separating walls become perforated, means contain pores. So the cytoplasm can pass from one cell to another as cytoplasmic strands or cytoplasmic threads. Okay, the companion cells. The companion cells are cells connected to the sieve tubes, as we said. They provide them with energy, or they provide the sieve tubes with energy because they contain mitochondria, because the passage of the food inside the phloem needs energy. And also they contain nucleus to control the phloem activity or to control the passage of the food inside the phloem. About the main function of the phloem, transportation of ready-made food from the leaves to the root. Okay? Look at this figure. This is the figure of the phloem, as we said, and this is the phloem as a whole. These tubes are the sieve tubes, and in pink or in purple, these are the companion cells. Okay? Thank you for listening.